the recording to one or two people who just either fell off the time slot, it doesn't work for them anymore, but they want us to learn. So we'll keep learning together. Okay, last week we talked about understanding a little bit about the soul, where it comes, not where it comes from, because we said it's a part of Hashem, and understanding how it's this divine energy and light that's within us, and how it illuminates and brings light, and how mitzvot are compared, that Torah mitzvot are compared to the wick or the oil. The flame is the neshama, the soul that we have within. The wick is the body and the oil is the Torah mitzvot. So we talked about that last week. And then we were moving forward to understanding how does actually doing positive, how does doing positive things actually transform the world? Because we said that God actually desired a relationship with the world, with human beings. So how is it that doing an action affects things? And we said that God wanted a dwelling place specifically within this concealed, this reality where God's presence is concealed. And we said that one of the four foundational principles, an understanding in Judaism, which is a fascinating one, is that God has this desire to have a relationship with us. Us, finite humans with our issues, with our insecurities, with our failings, with our, whatever, our stuff. That's who God wanted a relationship with. So moving forward to on page 99, that's where we're going to start on page 99. Moving forward, we're talking about, okay, so if God desired this relationship with us in this world, where is it headed towards? Is it for no reason? Is it just a fun game? Where does this go? Okay, I understand that godliness is, let's say we can all come to the conclusion that godliness is concealed, and that God, in fact, desires a relationship with human beings within this finite, limited world, and that we are partners in that. And that was a desire of Hashem. So let's say we can absorb and accept and understand and digest every single layer of that mindset. The question is, where is this headed towards? And in 99, it discusses, actually, it's not all just headed, or it's not all existing for no reason or no future or no trajectory, okay? There is a destination in the GPS of this journey. So if anyone wants to read on page 99, it's going to lead into a very interesting conversation, but 99, please, if you don't mind. Anyone want to read the ultimate?
I can start.
Sure. Thanks, Susan.
It is a well-known saying of our sages that the purpose of the creation of the world is that God yearned to have a home in the lower worlds. Keep going. Okay, the ultimate perfection of this world, which will exist in the Messianic era and the time of the resurrection of the dead, meaning the revelation of the infinite light in this physical world, is dependent on our actions and service throughout the period of exile. For it is the mitzvah itself that generates its own reward.
Okay, this is a lot of fundamental core principles in this 6 lines. The 6 lines are actually talking about the idea of that the world, there is a destination, right? We're not just in this hamster wheel where godliness is concealed. We struggle with this animal soul and the godly soul. We're just trying to trying to make a living, trying to live a holy life. What's it all about? What's this giant game, right? So here's where the Alter Rebbe is basically quoting one of the fundamental principles. We know Maimonides discusses 13 principles of faith. One of the fundamental principles of Judaism is actually a belief in Mashiach. What is Mashiach? Mashiach is this era, Mashiach is a person who ushers in a messianic age. Now, messianic ages, especially in the South, get very confused, okay? Judaism, Mashiach, a Messiah, is a Jewish idea. Okay, has been for thousands of years. We say, Ani ma'amin be'emunah shalema, I believe with perfect faith, the Viat HaMashiach, and the coming of Mashiach. It's according to Maimonides, the 13 principles of Jewish faith, just like we believe in one God, we believe in the idea of Mashiach. So what's Mashiach? Mashiach is this era that godliness will be revealed, that will understand basically the veil will be lifted, okay? And godliness and let's say struggle, which we can't necessarily make sense of different struggles, different realities. Right now we can look at the world and be like, what is this purpose? What is this goal now? We may be able to find the silver lining. We may be able to find good things that are happening out of it. And please God, we'll all come out of this stronger. We may be able to even bank on this other fundamental belief that we talked about, that negative things, that nothing happens is negative and that there's good in everything and there's growth potential, and sometimes we have to step back and to propel ourselves forward. Let's say we digest and absorb all of that. It's still a question. Why pain? Why suffering? Why challenges? Why struggles? So it describes the time of Mashiach when a wolf and a lamb will be able to sit together. A lion and a lamb will be able to hang out together, where there won't be countries hating each other, where there won't be famine, there won't be death, there won't be destruction. It's this kind of utopian era that we come to where the world was basically the way it was meant to be in the Garden of Eden, the whole Garden of Eden debacle. Okay, so it is a belief that the world is headed in that direction. And if you look at a lot of the prophecy of the era of Mashiach, the time period of Mashiach, we're actually leading in that direction. I remember when the UN was formed. Now, okay, we're not commenting on the UN and their, that's not what this is. This is not a political or commentary here. But when the UN was formed, the Lubavitcher said just the fact that nations are getting together with the mindset of peace, like, yes, okay, fine, we're not going to say if it's corrupt or it's not manifesting itself or playing out in the right way, but the fact that that's a thing is likened towards the era of Mashiach, meaning there's already a platform for nations of the world to unite in harmony. Now, okay, we all know they're using it to trash Israel and do whatever. Fine. I'm not, again, not a political workshop. I'm not a political pundit, but the idea being that there's a lot, or even the idea that let's say there's no more sickness or death or destruction, right? The fact that they can generate human limbs. And I remember once I was on a plane, I watched this documentary of, because I never watch any, I don't have time to watch anything, but I was watching this documentary and it was showing how they can duplicate and create from cells of a mouse, a complete mouse heart, a heart of a mouse in a lab. So this idea is not so crazy that, wow, we will be able to live longer and be healthier and, okay? So the era of Mashiach is now obviously there's a lot more to read about it. There's a lot more to understand about it. There's actually a course on Mashiach right now that's being learned by a lot of people on understanding Mashiach and the prophecy about Mashiach, and it's fascinating. But the idea being that the world is headed towards something, and what we're doing now in this world is actually heading in that direction. And we're players in that, each and every one of us in our own way. That being said, and the part of the characterization of the Mashiach era or the time of Mashiach is Mal Haaretz De'as Hashem. The whole world will know godliness. They'll understand. Godliness will be revealed. It'll be open. So that being said, the Alter Rebbe goes on to say, yes, we're headed somewhere. And as a matter of fact, what is one of the things that are noted in here about the era, the time of Mashiach, is resurrection of the dead. Because we actually do believe, if we believe a divine soul is eternal, then it exists in a different sphere, a different plane right now, right? And I know some people who said to me, like, I do feel sometimes my mother who passed on, I feel her presence in my life. I feel like she's protecting me, or I feel like, she's intervening on my behalf. That's the energy or the spirit of that neshama coming, affecting this world. But we believe that soul is forever and eternal. And so it's part of the prophecy of Mashiach is resurrection of the dead. Just like reincarnation is also a Jewish idea, that a soul can be reincarnated into a different reality. And souls come back in the world because let's say they didn't accomplish all 613 mitzvot in the last life, they come back, got more stuff to accomplish. These are all Jewish ideas. I didn't know that. Huh?
I did not know that. So what about heaven? What's the Jewish view of heaven?
So heaven and hell are fascinating. They're not like a location. It's not like one's here and one's there. That's the Christian view. And it's not like this one has fire and brimstone and this one is like, I don't know, chocolate fountains and puppies. I don't know, whatever. I don't know where that was came from. But the idea of heaven is if a soul is an energy, so that energy, where does that energy kind of reside or spend time? And heaven is a space for a soul that, came into this world. Now, we do believe that every soul is going to need some sort of kind of cleansing when it leaves this world. And we do believe that the people who are left in this world are able to do things in merit of that neshama, where that person, like, why do we light a Yahrzeit candle, or why do we donate a Torah in someone's memory, or a synagogue in someone's memory, or Torah learning in someone's memory. Why do we do that? We do that to elevate that godly soul, because that soul is now not in a body. Does that make sense? So it's elevated within the heavenly spheres. Now, I haven't spent time there that I remember, but there is definitely a lot of, there's a lot about heaven and hell. And actually, the translation of hell is not like the way you've seen it in the movies or books or whatever. There's no such thing as eternal damnation, doesn't exist. It actually describes that when a soul ascends on high, it's gonna burn with shame when it sees the potential that it didn't actualize, or it sees the results of its actions. That's where the concept of hell being a burning thing came from. Mistranslation.
Oh, that it's burning in shame, but it doesn't mean you're
like when you
going
burn
to-
up from embarrassment, it doesn't mean your soul is going through coals. No, like your soul is an energy. So how is it going through a physical fire?
Fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot more on it. I mean, I could definitely direct you if you're like more curious about it. I'm happy to direct you to some more.
Yeah, I'd like to, because we
Sure.
have situations where we are questioned quite a bit about how we are not good Christians, and aren't we worried that we're going to go to hell?
You know, Yossi always guides the students when that happens. He just says to them, you know, just tell them I'll be with my Jewish friends. like
But
fine.
it's so, I mean, dear friends have asked me this, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and it hurts me.
Well, it's so interesting because we don't believe we have a monopoly. Jews don't believe that Jews have a monopoly on heaven. Like, it doesn't belong to us. Every soul is divine.
Right. And so I'd like to learn more. I'd like to be able to have there's a friend of a friend who approaches my poor husband on a regular basis, to the point
I'll
that
send you some good stuff to do some research, and then Gail, when you do it, you come back and give us a report.
I will, but
You take the mic.
it's
Yeah, in the South, you get that. I've had students who are so shocked where like their roommate will be like, I love you, but we're not going to be in our afterlife together because you can't accept Lord Savior. And the students don't know how to handle it. They're like, what am I supposed to say? Yes, he's like, look, you're not going to change their belief system. And you don't have to change their belief. Like, let them believe what they believe. Like, okay, fine.
There's a lot of times I've told people when they say something like that, I'll say, so of all the other religions in the world, like Buddhist and Hindu and all these other religions, do you really think that God doesn't like just only takes a little certain group, and it takes them to heaven or whatever, that everybody else is just, disposed of? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And then I was talking to a friend. Have you heard about some big prayer thing that's happening on Yom Kippur in Washington?
I did not.
Okay.
No one invited me. I mean, I'll be fasting.
I think it's a Christian thing.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be a Jewish thing.
My friend posted something about some big prayer thing happening in Washington, D.C. to pray over our leaders. And
our leaders could use prayers.
Absolutely.
But that's like today and tomorrow. We don't have to wait till Yom Kippur.
Well, so I texted her and I asked her if she was going, and I said, so when is this? I was just being a supportive friend, just, you know, she had posted it on Facebook, so I just asked her. And she said that it was a prayer and it was happening on Yom Kippur. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, it's our understanding that the veil is it's easiest to pray on Yom Kippur, that the veil has been lifted.
Yeah.
And so we're all going to pray on that day because God will have our ear. And I'm thinking, so you think that the Jewish people are all going to hell, and yet you're kind of using our holiday to talk to God.
Gail, don't try to make sense, please. Logic is not always appreciated. You know what? I have this a very lovely woman in town who loves to talk to my husband and I about Lord and Savior. And I'm like, okay, so that's what you believe. It doesn't faze me so much. It just doesn't. I don't know.
Mm-mm. No, it was just a really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Look, they're right on one area, that there is an energy in the air, an energy in the world, in the universe for prayer on that day. So they've gotten that right. Cool.
Well, and I absolutely, but I just found it so funny that.
Yeah. You know what though? There's a lot of look, Judaism does not demand blind faith. Judaism is a culture of questioning and thinking. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Like literally God gave us a Torah. He spoke to us. He gave us a top 10. And like within a month we were challenging him and being like, really? You sure? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't. And then we hung out in the desert after like splitting of the sea and all of that. And Moses is like, you guys are so difficult. Like we have been challenging status quo for years, and that's okay. Because it really leads to a deeper relationship with our identity with Hashem. So blind faith is not even where we draw the line. It's not even like, wow. Like, no, we're meant to acknowledge the struggle and the difficulty. And we even talked about in Tanya how we are hardwired that way. So
I've often wondered too, like if since Christians do the Old Testament and the New Testament, like why they don't celebrate the holidays from the Old Testament. That's never made sense to me.
So it's so interesting you said that. I know this woman also down here in Texas, College Station, and she said she got kicked out of church because she started challenging them. She's like, why aren't we keeping Passover? We need a sukkah. Why aren't we keeping kosher? She's like, if we believe this, then this is what it says. Why aren't we doing it? Whatever. You know, I can only speak for Judaism the best I can. And even that I have to, you know, I only represent what I can represent and what I know and what I could share. You know what I mean? So I don't try to justify or explain other.
Well, and when they do Passover, they turn it into.
Some do, some don't.
Will have seders, but it's.
They're definitely not cleaning their house for Pesach and not eating bread for 8 days. That's for sure.
No, and they're turning it into a Christian holiday, and it's all from. So it's very different.
Yeah,
very different.
We received a package in the mail about 2 weeks ago addressed to the Jewish family at my address, and it was telling us how we needed to convert.
What?
Yes, and it was like all these pages of all these things that Jewish people do wrong, and I mean we just threw it in the trash, but it was like, whoa, obviously these people have been walking through the neighborhood looking for mezuzahs on doors to send it to the Jewish people.
That's kind of
creepy. Karen, where do you live?
On Gold Dust Trail, like right near the Dallas Chabad and Torah Day School and Levine Academy.
You're in Dallas. Okay.
Yes. And it's weird because a couple of days before that, we had seen these people walking around the neighborhood with clipboards, but, you know, didn't think anything. And yeah.
I'll never forget, Karen, when we were first moved here and he had just left in the morning to go to like the Chabad house for like shul.
Right.
And these two women walked at our doors with Bibles and they're like, you know, can we talk to you? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, listen, you know, my husband's a rabbi. We're like, do you believe in the Lord? And I said, no, we're Jewish. My husband's a rabbi. And she says, she like flips open a book. She's like, do you know what this book is? And I'm like, yeah, it's a book of Psalms written by King David, actually compiled by King David, written by 10 different authors from Adam to King David. And she's like, well, do you believe this? And she like points to this, like, and the wicked shall be punished. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, the God I believe in has actually created me with my wickedness and my issues. And the same God created me, understands me, and understands how I can, you know, move forward. And as long as I'm moving forward every day at a time to be a better version of myself and bring light into the world, I'm really not so worried I'm not scared of that. And they both like looked at each other and like, they like were shocked and they just never came back. They like slammed their books and were gone. I was like, I told him, like, I think you're really knocking at the wrong door. Like, my husband's the rabbi in town. You're at the wrong door. But they didn't. I give them credit for being, you know.
Well, that's what I said to my kids. I was like, you know what? And I've always tried to instill this in my children. We're Jewish first and foremost. I was a Jewish South African and then moved to America and became a Jewish American. But I'm Jewish first and foremost. And we're proud of who we are. And no letters in the mail are going to make me think differently, and no nothing can ever make me question who I am, because I am who I am.
You know,
And I'm proud of who I am.
I think that there's a value in living that, tremendous value, Karen. I think that's amazing. And I would add to it, more than just living it, also teaching your kids not to be so worried. Just throw it in the garbage. My kids say, what's this book? I said, you know, whatever, Maria sent it, or whatever her name is, you know, I think her name is.
Right.
I said, Maria sent it. Wow, why is she sending it? It's good. She thinks we'll enjoy it. Just throw it out. It's fine. You know, I don't want to get them either too agitated about it. Okay.
Right.
I think actually the world would do better if everyone could respect each other's beliefs. I mean, we would do better.
Exactly.
Learn how to tune out things that we don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's disconcerting to hear from friends. I get it, Gail. I get it.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I see it a lot. I see Yessie and I get that a lot with students, really helping them navigate it and not see it in a threatening way, and just understand that really philosophically, if your roommate loves you and really thinks you're going to hell forever, then they really think that, and that's okay, you know, like, okay, so someone thinks that. Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've gotten a little bit off the rails, but that's okay.
Oops, sorry.
No, these are great. This is, you know, the beauty. I mean, look, we could have taken this course and done it in 6 weeks, but we would have lost all the learning we're doing between the lines. And Torah is a process. It's not, you know, a product that we ever master. We keep moving and we keep learning and we keep growing and we keep peeling away the layers and personalizing it. And there's no script here. You know what I mean? So don't apologize at all, Gail. I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think, look, even just hearing the way Karen approached that with her children is beautiful and inspiring, and I can learn from that, right? So I think, you know, there's no apologies. Let's at least get one big concept in today. Okay, now we understand basically the idea. I mean, you know, it's a big idea, and I'm going to forward you more information on it, but the idea being is that doing a mitzvah is God's will and God's wisdom. This world is a world where we need more light and we need more godliness, and we need more of that in this world. And our job is to kind of bring heaven into earth, meaning bring heaven down to earth, meaning heaven, which is godliness, spirituality, concealed, and we need to do it. So now the Alter is going to kind of explain there's 3 ways that we actually alter the world. This, right? He mentions there is a destination. We're headed towards the Arab Mashiach, okay? And he mentions what that may look like to some extent. Now back to really what our subject was, is what's the point of our daily interactions with the material world and everything that we're involved in. And here we're discussing that basically we can actually elevate 3 different categories of, well, okay. Let's say we're moving to Mars tomorrow. Elon Musk, you know, forms his the Mars rover, the Mars rocket is taking off, and we sign up and we're going, and we're cool. We're going to start we'll start our own little community up in Mars, the first Chabad house in Mars, no problem, whatever it is. Okay. So now what do we need to do in order to go to Mars and form a Jewish community? So we're going to need to bring a lot of stuff, because Jews have a lot of stuff. We have a lot of mitzvot, and that needs the stuff. We need a lulav and an esrog and a sukkah and a challah and a flour and wheat and water for a mikvah, and we need wine and grapes. I mean, we're going to need a lot of stuff, right? And not only are we going to need the stuff to do them, it's not good enough for me to just, you know, bring the bottle of wine. I need to bring grapes and bottles and glass and sand and the machines and just imagine. I'm thinking of packing for that trip, and I'm getting, you know, overwhelmed. A lot. So the author is using that analogy, we can actually understand. The author is going to explain that when you do a mitzvah with an object, you're not just elevating the materialism within that object. You're the matter that object comes from. So let's say we take this beautiful bottle of wine here, which I did not finish clearly. It's still sitting there. After 5 p.m. So maybe we'll say l'chaim before the end of class. So we have we have wine, and I'm going to use it, it's kosher wine, and I'm going to use it to make kiddush for Shabbat. I'm even going to say a blessing on it, and I'm going to use it to relax and celebrate with my family, maybe even host, not now, pre-quarantine COVID, right? Host. So now what did I elevate? The sand that made the glass, the paper, the tree, the grapes, all the objects involved in that one bottle of wine are elevated. What does that mean? That means that godly divine sparks are embedded in every single material item that exists within this universe. And it exists because God wills it to, meaning everything that exists according to creation, God created. We could peel everything back to matter, right? So the fact that it exists, that sand exists, that then, or the grapes exist, that I can turn into wine, means they're meant to be in this world. So I have the opportunity to what's called nitzutzim, which literally means godly spark. So imagine the analogy I give, just because I think as mothers, with we can relate to this. Imagine, glitter, when your kid comes home with a glitter project, right? So you know how it's like ends up in everything, no matter what, right? Yeah, it's like the arch nemesis of projects is glitter. So, or of moms at least, right? So imagine that, like the glitter, each little glitter dot being a divine energy that's embedded in everything. Every material item in this world has divine energy. And we believe that the reason it exists is because it has divine energy, that God, created this world, spoke it into existence. So let's say tefillin, or phylacteries, it's tefillin that men wear. It's made out of cowhide, and there's ink made out of berries, and there is a feather that's used for a quill. All that, meaning the tefillin the cow elevates its existence by becoming a pair of tefillin. Does that make sense what I'm saying? That there's divine energy within everything, and when we use it the way we're meant to use it. So I can use this pen to write notes in a Torah class. So all the material, all the items within this the material matter are being elevated, or I can use it to jab you, poke you, or hurt you. That's not the way it's meant to use. But I have free will to elevate the material world that you and I see. And that's a vastly different approach in Judaism that Kabbalah tells us, that all materialism can be elevated. To bring, it's like other religions may look at materialism and spirituality as separate, like money, sex, separate, not holy. And Judaism says everything material, physical, can be spiritual when utilized in the right way. Okay? And so the mitzvah exists in order to allow us to be that connection between that light, that divine energy spark in the matter, and revealing its potential. And it needs humans to do so, right? So that's one level. The object gets elevated. The second level of elevation, and we're going to read the text in a row. I'm going to just give you the framework, and then we'll read the text all in a row, is the energy we utilize in doing the mitzvah. So going to the store to buy that bottle of wine, the time, the energy, my physical energy that's needed is also elevated. So my feet are elevated to go to the store to buy that bottle of wine, to bring it home. My arms that carried it, my phone call, hey, to my husband, do you want this wine? Not. My physical self, I'm elevating by utilizing that materialism for godliness and goodness. And then the fuel that I need in order to accomplish that also is elevated. So that means if I drove to the store and I needed gas, so that's elevated. I needed water, that's elevated. The reason this is unique is because sometimes as Jews, we look at ourselves and we think like, I'll do a mitzvah, I don't do a mitzvah, I believe, I don't believe, I belong to a temple, I don't belong to a temple, whatever we classify, I'm a Yom Kippur Jew, however we classify and label ourselves, and we're professionals at this. I always joke, like, as Jews, anyone who's a drop more religious, they're a fanatic, and anyone who's a little bit less than exactly where I'm at, they're a heretic, right? Exactly where I am is where I'm comfortable. That's the Jewish mindset. So we look at sometimes ourselves, and we can think, did I do anything good? And so sometimes I see students and they say, oh, I'm not a really good Jew, or I'm kind of Jewish, I say, no, there's no such thing. They're like, yeah, no, I don't really keep kosher. I'm like, you ate an apple today? Yeah, the apple was kosher. Oh, really? Okay. You went food shopping? And sometimes I show them, I'll show them in the pantry. I say, look at all these items. 70% of the food industry is kosher. So when you're standing in the supermarket, right then and there, look at that. That meal was a kosher meal. So meaning we tend to be very hard on ourselves, but we realize that all the energy, like I said, if we were going to Mars, everything we would need to do the mitzvah, that would be elevated. Same thing with us in this world. So let's quickly read at least the three texts text 6, text 7, and text 6, 7, and 8. I think if someone could take turns reading, so maybe someone could read 6 and some 7, whatever you'd like, ladies.
I'll start.
Perfect, thank you. And after 6, we'll just break it down a little bit, but I kind of gave you an overview of 6, 7, and 8 because they kind of go together. Okay? And I wanted to make sure at least we got like one full concept in today. Go ahead.
By performing a mitzvah, the person draws the revelation of the blessed infinite light from above downward, to be clothed in the physicality of this world in an object which had heretofore been under the dominion of non-holiness. For example, the parchment of the tefillin, mezuzah, and Torah scrolls. Similarly, an etrog, which is not orla.
Orla, okay, so just to explain what orla is okay. There is different laws of tzedakah, agricultural laws of tithing. Now, tithing, we think of just 10%. There's you have to take your corner, your crops. Basically, someone in the land of Israel who was poor would never, ever starve according to following the Jewish laws of agricultural giving. So let's say there is the Shemitah year, the sabbatical year, where everything was left free for poor people. There was the corners, pay out the corners of the crops. Let's say this was your field. And actually, section in Mishnah deals with the corners of the field were kept free for poor people to eat. Let's say you collected bundles and you carried a bunch, but you left a few behind. They're called shikha. That was also left for poor people. So orla is one of the categories of giving that relates to agriculture. Okay, keep going.
Okay. The forbidden fruit of a tree's first 3 harvests, or money given to charity that has not been acquired through theft, and the like. Now that one fulfills God's commandments and will with these objects, the vitality within them ascends and is dissolved and absorbed into the blessed infinite light, which is his will that is expressed in the mitzvah. For in a mitzvah, there is nothing whatsoever to hide his light.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Number 1, when you're doing a mitzvah, you are connecting with God and God's light himself. It's not an intermediary, there's no rabbi needed. It's you and Hashem, your godly soul, the potential within that mitzvah to connect and elevate godliness and materialism. Orla, I gave you some of that thing. There's another law. There was a law called Orla, which meant if you had a fruit tree, you were not allowed to pick the fruit of that tree for 3 years. You had to give that tree 3 years to lay roots, and you were not allowed to reap the benefits of that fruit tree. And it was considered, so it was literally like, how could a lemon be not kosher? Is if you ate it during the Orla years, those 3 years. Okay? Now, happens to be farmers say that's actually healthy for a plant, but that's not why we do it. We do it because God said don't use the fruit. So it's saying, let's say your etrog is not an Orla etrog. So that means it's used the right time, because like I said before, if you light a candle on a Tuesday afternoon, it's not a Shabbat candle. Shabbat candle is lit when it wants. If I give you a present on a Wednesday tomorrow, it's not a birthday present. It may be nice, you enjoy it, but it's not for your birthday. So the idea being that the mitzvah, it's not just about the material item, the object you're utilizing, but also doing it at the details matter, basically. It's like, oh, I forgot it was your birthday, but I remembered a week later. That's nice, but on my birthday, that kind of stunk, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So similarly, we would never use an etrog from an Orla tree or tree that's in Orla stage, because the same God who told us to take an etrog, right, the citron that we use on Sukkot, if everyone's familiar, the same God who told us to do that told us not to use the fruit during the first 3 years. So it's just kind of explaining how the object is obviously one, or like it gives a great example, not using tzedakah from stolen money. You're not supposed to steal, so don't give tzedakah out of the money you stole.
Right.
Okay? Makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't want your kid buying you a present with money they stole. No, you
Right,
raise
right.
your child not to steal. Don't steal. Okay? Does that make sense? So
Mhm.
as we're doing the mitzvah, the material item is elevated to the godly space. The next one is that the energy, and I said this, that the energy we use to do the mitzvah is also elevated. Now, where's that energy come from? If we talk about the animal soul, the godly soul, which one do you think gives us energy? Comes from the animal soul. So here's this animal soul that causes us issues. We also have the opportunity to elevate it, because animal soul's vitality, it anchors us in this world. It's the soul that makes sure that we eat and drink and sleep and we stay alive and healthy. Okay? The godly soul would just bring me back to God. No thanks. I don't want to have anything to do with this chaotic world. Okay? So let's read text 7. If you don't mind, Susan, reading text 7, I really appreciate it.
Similarly, the power of the vitalizing animal soul clothed in the bodily limbs of a person who performs a mitzvah clothes itself in the deed of the mitzvah, and it ascends from non-holiness to be absorbed into the holiness of the mitzvah. Even in the case of such speech-related mitzvot as Torah study, reciting the Shema, prayer, and the like, although they do not involve actual physical action, yet one does not fulfill the duty of Torah study, prayer, etc., unless he actually utters the words with his lips.
Okay, what's the idea here? The idea is fascinating, is that basically the physical body that we have, again, we could look at a physical body and we can't necessarily understand that our bodies are holy. That's actually why in Judaism we don't desecrate the body. We don't mutilate our bodies. We don't get tattoos, because our bodies are actually divinely holy. They're the house for the soul. So the energy we use, that our bodies are the limbs of our bodies that we use to do the mitzvah, like we said before, when a soul, we talked about last week, the soul's coming into the world, the soul needs the body as a partnership to do mitzvot. So therefore we can elevate that as well. Okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is why, by the way, when we pray, we don't pray with our eyes. We don't just read. We say the words. We use that bodily energy to articulate, and also because speech has a power, but that's the sidebar. Speech is a very powerful reality.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Huh?
I have a question.
Go for it. Love questions.
So, like, you know, you're not supposed to mutilate the body. I understand that, and I know tattoos have always kind of been taboo, but what about like piercings? Like people have, I mean, because almost everyone has got their ears pierced.
So from what I understand, my husband actually does an entire class on tattoos and body piercings, because that's a fun subject for students to explore. From what I understand, as long as it's something that's like not mutilating, meaning you put earrings in your ears and you put, a little nose ring. We actually see the matriarchs wear nose rings, and you saw actually Eliezer brings for Rebecca nose rings. It was trending then too. I think within the construct, I think once a person is so old, okay, a nip and tuck according to the Torah, you can have one, right? It's not against the Torah, but like someone who like changes their body to look like a cat or something like so bizarre, that would definitely cross the line of like not appreciating the vessel that God gave for your soul. Get what I'm saying? Like there's probably a fine line where someone's entire self is covered with piercings. That's definitely not respecting, according to the Torah. So I think it would probably have to do with also permanent or not permanent. Like if you get an earring hole, it's not permanent, right? So I think that would also be part of it. I have to say I've never really researched it because I've never had a desire for an insane amount of piercings. What could I tell you? Surprise, surprise. So I'm not completely entirely sure, but from what I understand, that's the case. Is that there's within norms. I think it's also whether it's permanent or not, so that's also a huge factor. Now, though, the myth is that you can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery, and you actually can. Don't tell anyone.
You can.
Yeah. What actually would normally happen is the Chavar Kadisha, which is the Jewish Burial Society, would actually probably, sometimes they'll remove the tattoo from the skin, because here's an interesting thing. When a piercing is in, it takes it out. Piercing is not permanent. You could take it out, right, in a sense. A tattoo, it says when someone goes up before God, everything else, their mistakes are not as like literally written on their skin. So when that soul goes before, heavenly court about its accounting for its existence in this world, and it has a tattoo on it, then it's almost like a very obvious, I didn't listen to what you said. Now, obviously that's when it's done. Even in Jewish law, anything that a person would be held liable for, they would have to be knowledgeable about it. So someone who's not knowledgeable, it's called b'shogeg. Even halachically, according to Jewish law, if someone does something and they don't know that it's a thing, their accountability is different. According to Jewish law, not only do they have to know about it, they've also been warned about it twice by two separate witnesses. So, Jewish law is different than our legal system.
Interesting.
Yeah, even Jewish law doesn't either believe in just like prison people for nothing, whatever. We're not going to get into that subject today, but Jewish law does believe in rehabilitation and helping people through things, and yeah. So interesting. Okay, let's at least just do text 9 so we could wrap up this. No, text 8. Sorry. Did we read 8?
No.
No.
No, let's do 8. That's what I mean. 9 we'll do next time. Sorry. Yeah, because 9 is a new layer. Anyone want to read text 8? We'll just wrap with this text.
Sure, I'll read.
Yeah.
The energy invested into the performance of mitzvot involving action derives its vitality from all the food and drink that one has eaten and drunk. Those were under the dominion of non-holiness. But when the person performs a mitzvah with the energy derived from this food and drink, this non-holiness is transformed. Thereby, all of the realm of the neutral non-holiness, which constitutes the vitality of this physical world as a whole, will ascend as well.
So that means the breath that you take, the sleep, the house that you live in, your car that you use to do this, meaning we have incredible potential to bring light into the world with all the resources that we do have. Our time, our energy, our physical self, our emotional self, the clothing we wear that we go to, like who thinks of elevating clothing? Yeah. Yeah. It's a very unique perspective Judaism has. But there's a lot of good we can do.
It's a very positive outlook of bringing things to the world.
Yeah. It also gives us a little bit of a different perspective on materialism. So I think the world has a complicated relationship with materialism. We either see it as like a thing that defines me, or we see it as a thing that I can pursue. We could see it as a very superficial means. We could see it as there are people who like they want to be minimalist because they want to be more focused in life. Judaism has this perspective that the material world is meant to be elevated and used and uplifted. So enjoy a good steak, right? But like make a bracha, pick a kosher steak if you can, little ways to elevate godliness in this world. Have a glass of wine and say l'chaim. We're not into celibacy and locking yourself on top of a mountain and not talking and eating. We're not into it. That's not seen as the Jewish path to spiritual fulfillment. As a matter of fact, the high priest in the temple was meant to be a married man. And what's interesting? At the end of the Yom Kippur service, after 24 hours of serving in the temple and going to the mikvah again and again and again, and representing the Jewish people on this holy, powerful day, as you mentioned, Gail, as your friends mentioned, the high priest, at the end of the service, the entire Jewish nation escorted the high priest home. And it's like, wow, what is that? And singing and dancing. So the commentators say, like, what is that about? Like, it seems like such a random thing. And they explain that the whole goal of that spiritual day is to bring it down into the material day-to-day life. So the high priest was a married man who had a wife and had a family and understood the day-to-day struggle, so he could represent the people because he understood what they're going through. But not only did he understand their troubles, the message was being sent to the Jewish people. It's not just about Yom Kippur. Holiness is in my home and in your home on a Tuesday afternoon. It's a beautiful tradition that Jews have. So, l'chaim to finding ways to elevate the material world. By the way, this also explains why tzedakah is so fundamentally Jewish. Because when we give tzedakah, when we give a tenth of our earnings, we're not elevating just the tenth that we gave. A tenth, according to Judaism, is what God obliges us to give. My kids, anytime my kids $1 from the tooth fairy, they want to know how much a tenth is, so they could give a tenth, because it's not theirs. We train them to give Meiser, 10% of your earnings. The idea of the 10% is not just that the 10% becomes holy, it's the 90% also becomes holy because you've already taken off of it and elevated it. All the energy that you used while you're doing that mitzvah, the time of your life that you use, you go to work for 10 hours a day, please God, not 10 hours a day, but as many hours as you're going to work a day, the time, the energy, the resources, the materials, that's why Judaism has always been such a focus on tzedakah, because really at its core, it's elevating materialism, and everything we did and everything we do to get that money is uplifted by giving tzedakah, which is why like over 40% of the world's philanthropy comes from Jews, which are less than 2%, because it's such a core fundamental value. And now we can understand that a little bit more, understanding the way we elevate things.
Interesting.
Yep, l'chaim, ladies.
L'chaim.
Lots of good times in learning. I'm gonna jump off. Susan,
Thank you, Tanya. This was
I'm
great.
gonna message Nathan. I'm gonna message him on Thursday and ask him where we could drop off his Shabbat to go, and I'm just gonna tell him that you ordered it. Okay?
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I'll end dessert and a yummy dinner. He's not gonna mind.
No, I doubt it.
Take care, guys. Good. Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.